Been waiting for this for a while. Good afternoon, everyone. How you doing? Oh, let's try that one more time. How's everybody doing? There we go. It is great to be back here tonight. I'm Jeff Woolsey, and this is my colleague, Bob Ward. Hi, Bob.
Jeff, great to be with you. Windows and SQL together. What do you call Windows and SQL together?
Oh, they're like chocolate and peanut butter, man.
Exactly.
You have one, you have the other. They go together just great.
Awesome.
I've been excited about this session. Whenever I get to present with Bob, and it's not too often, it's always a whole bunch of fun. Today, we're going to talk about doing more with Windows Server and SQL Server on Azure. And we may have a few surprises in it, too, huh?
Jeff, we have to show stuff people haven't seen before.
Yeah, we got some stuff as well.
We're going to do that, exactly.
Before we get started, one thing I've got to point out, just quickly on the agenda side, we got a number of demos planned. We want to talk about patching and updating, hybrid capabilities with Azure Arc, security, previews of what's coming, and some stuff that's coming up next.
Exactly.
So before we get started, we have to start with this.
Yeah.
It's a big, big event. It's 30 years. It's 30 years of Windows Server and SQL Server. Thank you. And most importantly, thank you to all of you. I mean, you guys, come on. How many of you remember, let's start with an easy one. How many of you remember NT4? Oh, look at all the hands that go up.
There's a lot of NT4.
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
Now, I'm guessing I'll see, but how many of you NT3.1? Any of you? Oh my gosh, that's quite a few hands.
We need to go hang out afterwards, man.
Awesome, you are my people. These are my people right here. Yeah, it's been 30 years and it's been incredible. And I look at the journey we've been on and the features and capabilities that we've added and the ability to deliver mission critical like SQL.
Yeah.
And so it's huge. And again, thank you for the fantastic partnership.
Well, I mean, it's an incredible partnership that SQL's run on Windows. We started kind of like small, like enterprise, 8 cores, 8 CPUs. I mean, I look at that logo and it kind of warms my heart because I started there back then, Jeff, in 1993 with this combination. But I think of what we do now today to run the most biggest workloads of the world on Windows Server. So to be here 30 years just shows a testament to the team, but also to the community. Thank you so much. Without them, we wouldn't have products.
Awesome. Yes, totally agree. And when it comes to customers, you know, when it comes to Windows Server and SQL Server customers, we know that they span the entire gamut of workloads. We have customers that are running SQL and data, small devices at the edge, branch offices, retail, manufacturing, to planetary size Azure PaaS, SQL, global planetary size databases, and everything in the middle. And we have customers that are running their business critical workloads on Windows and SQL. This is just a teeny tiny, we got tens and thousands of customers running the most mission critical workloads out there. And I'm just excited that we've got a ton of awesome new features and capabilities that are coming down the road in both of our products. Now, one of the things that we do is we like to poll you guys, and we like to find out what is important to you. What would you like to see in future versions of our products? Number one, easier patching. Let's be clear. We all have to patch. It's just, that's the way it is. Let who has written the perfect code raise their hand. Doesn't exist. So easier patching is always there. Enhanced security, always critical. We know the bad guys continue to up their game. We continue to up our games. It's why we make huge investments in security, whether it's Active Directory, whether it's Bastion, whether it's Defender for Cloud, whether it's Sentinel, you name it. We're making huge investments across the board. And then finally, hybrid capabilities. I'm going to ask a simple question of everybody in the audience, and I'm just looking for a show of hands. For your organization, what is your organization's cloud strategy? Is it 1, public cloud only? Is it 2, private cloud only? Or is it 3, hybrid cloud? Okay, first one, how many people are all public cloud only? That's all you're gonna do. I think I saw one hand. How many of you are gonna do all private cloud only? That's all you're doing, private cloud. One hand. Okay, and how many are hybrid? And here go the rest. And I can tell you, I've been asking this question for the last 2 years in every public session. I ask customers when I meet with them, that's the same response I get every time. Maybe one here, maybe one there. Everybody's in the hybrid camp. Totally agree with you. So today, we want to focus on those areas that you think are important. Patches and updates made easier, hybrid capabilities, enhanced security features. And let's start right off the bat with patches and updates made easier. And today that exists with hot patching for Windows Server Azure Edition. And in case you haven't seen this, I just have to show this to you because it's just a demo that just always wows everybody. So hot patching is a new way to install updates that doesn't require a reboot and doesn't interrupt the workloads running on your server. Now, before we start this demo, let me kind of describe the demo environment. On the left-hand side, or sorry, on the right-hand side, I have a Windows Server Core VM, and this is created and it'll be updated with Azure Auto Update, but I'm gonna manually install the hot patching updates. These are hot patches. On the left-hand side, I have traditional updates. These are what we call LCUs, or cumulative updates. This is what you've been doing for the last 20 years, okay? So we've got that, and then at the bottom, I've got a sample workload. I got file copies going on there because I wanna have an active workload, and I wanna show you that we do not want to upset the running workload. And at the top, I've got a demo timer so you can see this running. So I'm gonna go ahead and start these updates. The one on the left is what you were using today, the traditional update. In fact, I'm gonna give it a head start. I'm gonna head on over there and I'm gonna start installing the traditional update, okay? And so you can see we've started that, and on the right-hand side, oh, the hot patch is already done. I'm sorry about that. If you blinked, you may have missed that. The hot patch is done. The file server copy is continued without any interruption, any reboot, any change of service. Left-hand side is still cranking away at 11.5%. I feel really bad about that. Let's actually install a second hot patch, because I want to make sure you understand what we're actually doing, and I don't want you to miss it. So we're going to install a second hot patch on the right-hand side, and just like that, we're done again. So I just installed hot patches without any disruption or any downtime. And the beauty of hot patching is it's instantaneous. It's patching in memory. So it's not like, oh, you ran this patch, but I still need to reboot to get the fixes. The fixes are in, the changes are in. I am secure right now. So, you know what? This is gonna keep going for a little while. I'm gonna go ahead and speed this up because it's gonna take a little while for that traditional update to kick in. So let's go ahead and speed this up. You can see 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 7 minutes, 7 minutes, 12 seconds, and now reboot's required. Now, if I reboot right now, it's gonna interrupt my file copy, so definitely don't wanna do that. So I'm gonna wait for that to finish, and when that's done, I'll do the reboot. The point I wanna make here is Azure hot patching for Windows Server 2022 Azure Edition is available right now. And we have customers that are using it, seeing profound changes in their update mechanisms and their servicing. And in case you're wondering, I showed you this with Server Core, but people always ask me, what about the full desktop experience? Because we got a bunch of those, that's okay, you're covered there as well. So this covers both Server Core as well as Server with desktop experience. But let me show you a customer that is actually benefiting hugely from hot patching today. I don't know if you've ever heard of them. They're a little organization called Xbox. Xbox are big fans of hot patching, okay? So if you look today, a mission-critical workload is absolutely Xbox Cloud Services. If we disrupt anybody's game time, that's not good for anybody. So today, a partial view of the Xbox footprint, not all of it, but a partial is 1,000 servers running 18 different services. And Bob, get this, it's between 2 and 120 SQL servers.
There we go.
So, like I said, chocolate and peanut butter, okay? Yeah. Now, some of these workloads have been running for over 15 years. These started on physical servers. They are now running in Azure IaaS VMs. So, patching for this, look, we've always had an automated deployment. The Xbox team has an automated way to do it. There's a complete process. But it took 3 weeks to roll out the updates, and of course, without downtime, but it happened 12 times a year, and it took 3 weeks out of every month, okay? Because they had to, manage failover, manage reboots, and not impact and do it without downtime. With hot patching, they're now patching all 1,000 servers in less than 48 hours. That is not a typo. All 1,000 servers in less than 48 hours. You better believe the Xbox team loves this feature, and you should absolutely be using it yourself. And you want to know more about the future of hot patching, come to my session on Friday. And with that, Bob, I think you've got some exciting stuff too.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Hot patching, I love that stuff. Migrating to the cloud with SQL Server in a virtual machine is one of those popular options to lift and shift your workload. And many customers, when they do this, are like, you know what, I can handle the updates of a single SQL Server inside the VM. I can do this kind of type things. So what we've done in SQL Server and Azure VM is provide a capability to allow you to get security updates or critical updates in a single VM or at scale. Because if you do that at scale now, it becomes a little bit of a harder task, right? Well, these same customers said to us, they said, it's more than critical updates. SQL has cumulative updates just like Windows does, and I'm running Windows inside there. How do I do that without having to go inside the VM itself? Like, can you give me something in this control plane in the cloud to update outside the virtual machine, both for SQL and for Windows? So I'm excited to show you today a preview experience of what we call Azure Update Manager for SQL. So what I'm going to do here in this demonstration is use a virtual machine to start with, show you how to see that experience, and then kind of see it at scale. So in the portal over here, you can see I'm going to scroll over for a registered SQL Server virtual machine and pick Update. And I've got this new experience called Azure Update Manager. Now, when I do that, I've got a little bit of options I can do. One of them is I want to go in and update or enable Microsoft updates. What that's going to tell the system is, hey, inside these VMs, go check based on your current configuration, what are the new updates for both Windows and for SQL that should be applied, include cumulative updates. So once I've actually made this setting, I can go and say, hey, let's go check for the updates and refresh and see what happens. Again, based on your current configuration, we know what are the latest CUs to apply both for Windows and SQL. And if I'd like, I can go apply the update itself outside the VM environment. And if you see over here, there's actually some options for reboot requirements as well I can do. So I want to go a little bit further here. I'd like to see things more at scale across different virtual machines. So you're seeing here a complete inventory of all the virtual machines I have running on Windows in Azure. But I want to see just the SQL ones. So let me use a filtering here just to see SQL Server. Now I've got a certain list I want to attack. So what I can do now is go select these together as a group and do the same type of operations. I can go enable Microsoft Update, I can check for updates, even apply these updates ad hoc if I need to. But for me, it's about scheduling. So I have an interface as well to go in here and say, hey, for all those VMs I picked as a group, let's do a scheduled operation. In other words, let's check for updates to be applied, say monthly, weekly. So that way, and I can see notifications of these and see history of them, that way I get an easy updated notification to say, hey, here are the updates being applied in my environment. This is just a great example of what we're trying to do to help you manage your SQL Server virtual machines. And for the future, I want you to imagine Azure Arc being a similar type of experience where maybe all of a sudden now you get the same experience in the cloud as a control plane, doing this for SQL servers running on premises. All right, Jeff, I know you're passionate about Arc. I just mentioned it. Let's hear what you guys going on the Windows space.
Thanks. I love what you guys are doing with update management. Now we're going to shift gears and talk about hybrid. And one of the reasons I asked is because everybody in this room seems to be on the same page. Distributed, hybrid, that's where everyone is going. That is the long-term durable state. Let's be super clear here. And at Microsoft, this isn't a bolt-on. This isn't an add-on. This isn't something we thought about, oh yeah, we got to do on-prem too. No, no, no. It's been core to our cloud strategy since day one. And a key part of that is Azure Arc. So what is Azure Arc? Well, in Azure, we've got all of these fantastic services, whether it's cloud-based threat protection, whether it's monitoring, whether it's PaaS SQL, whether it's virtual desktops, with all of these servers. We've got governance, we've got Kubernetes, we've got infrastructure, we have all these capabilities. That's great if you're up there in Azure and it's just a click away. Want to take advantage of new AI, ML, Copilot, it's all there. But what happens when you need to connect this to your on-prem environment? And this is the big challenge with hybrid. People don't want to manage their on-prem one way and their cloud another way. I want a consistent, unified management for all of my resources wherever they reside. So if I want to Arc enable my servers, guess what? They appear in Azure. It's a metadata representation. It's still running on-prem. So if you're worried you need it on-prem because you need to run it in your manufacturing, or you have a data compliance concern or a regulatory concern or a data sovereignty, and you want to keep running on-prem, that's great. But wouldn't it be great if you could manage it from the cloud so that you had consistent governance, consistent policy, consistent security, such as Sentinel, Azure Monitor, Azure Policy, and it can reside on-prem, on Azure Stack HCI, can be on VMware, could be on physical machines, could be in a different cloud, could be on AWS. We're the only ones that are thinking about a completely distributed hybrid multi-cloud world. And let me show you what this looks like with Arc. So at the very top here, in fact, you look at the right-hand corner, you'll see my little picture. This is my login into Azure Arc. This is the Azure portal. And at the very top, you can see Azure Stack HCI, I've highlighted in purple. These are physical clusters. None of these are running in the cloud. They're all running outside the cloud, all physical. Below that, Azure Arc Kubernetes. You want to deploy cloud-native applications. You want to see all of your Kubernetes. Again, none of those Kubernetes deployments are running in Azure, all running outside. But this is just the first page. Let's go to the second page. Here I've got a list of servers. Now you may be thinking, Jeff, is that Linux? Is that Windows? The answer is yes, it's both. So I've just shown you physical clusters, I've shown you Kubernetes deployments, I've shown you Windows and Linux servers. None of them are running in Azure, but they all appear in the Azure portal because they're Arc enabled. But here's where the rubber meets the road. I've been showing to you this in list view, so you could see all of these. But let's actually switch the view. Let's go to summary view and put this on a world map so you can see these resources are running around the entire planet. We're running in South America, Australia, Asia, Europe, North America, cities throughout. Guess what? I can see them all. I can manage them all because they're Arc enabled. And when I say Arc enabled, let me be super clear. I'm talking about installing an agent. Okay, we're talking about installing an agent in your Windows server, in your Linux server, in your Kube environment, and guess what? You register it, and now it just appears in the Azure portal. Here's the most important thing. You may be thinking, that looks really cool, I'm sure it's really expensive. Everything I've just shown you here costs absolutely nothing. This is $0. I've spoken to CTOs for the last 20 years that said, Jeff, tell me what it is I need to pay to get that view, because I can't see all my resources. I can see what's going on in the home office in the data center, but I have no idea what's going on in my subsidiaries or my manufacturing or my branch office. I can't see that. This is available at $0. That's what Arc enabling a server does. So I beg you, after the show, when you go back to the office, go Arc enable a server. Don't believe a word I just said. Go try it out and see for yourself. Now, I do want to point out, if you decide you want to add a service to this, like I want to start monitoring these virtual machines, well then guess what? We're going to need some storage. So we will charge you for that. But Arc enabling it and giving you this complete inventory view is available at no additional cost. And Bob, I know you guys are doing some awesome stuff with Arc and SQL Server as well.
Well, we are an Arc-enabled server by default because we run on Windows.
Yes.
So SQL Server itself, we decided to build an extension off what the Azure Arc team has done to make sure that you could take an existing SQL server, running on premises or another cloud, and connect it to Azure with Arc just like you do with Windows. Now, customers have asked me, like, okay, this must be a 2022 thing or a 19 thing. You can do this back to SQL 2012. You can connect older versions of SQL Server with Azure and get extra value. Now, today out of the gate, what people have liked about it so far, like Jeff talked about, is inventory. But check this out. We have pay-as-you-go licensing now. When you use Azure Arc with SQL Server, you can actually now pay Microsoft with an Azure subscription license per core, per hour, for your on-premises SQL servers, and then take those licenses and use them somewhere else, or maybe you're using your SQLs a lot more often. Very popular option people have seen already out of the gate with Azure Arc with SQL. But we've got some announcements to make. This week, we're announcing a new monitoring experience for SQL Server. We're going to show you that in a second. I call that, Jeff, my Perfmon in the cloud.
Yes.
So I get that beautiful Perfmon feel of visualizations and all the great SQL counters I want to monitor workloads for SQL Server running on premises or in other clouds. Now, we know that many people don't run SQL servers just by themselves. They're usually part of a cluster or an availability group. And so now we've enhanced that inventory and discoverability so that we can detect and see where your AG's running, where your cluster's running, what do they look like, what are the health of those things. And in addition, extended security updates we know are important for you. So by using SQL Server and Arc, you can actually get visibility into extended security updates and even have a new monthly billing model to pay for that for the SQL Server extended updates itself. Let's see the experience now. Let's kind of see what it looks like. So what I'm going to do is show you this new monitoring experience preview just today and see what it may benefit you from monitoring a SQL Server on premises using Azure. So here in the portal, what I'm going to do is first look at all my instances. These are all the different SQL Server instances that are actually going out there. And then I'm going to try to drill in on one of them. Or actually, you know what? I don't think I want to do that. I think I want to look at them as a collective whole. I've got now inventory, rich inventory and visualizations across my SQL fleet. And in fact, if you look closely here, it's not just Azure Arc SQL. Because it's a SQL Server, we can do it across even things that are in the cloud already. I'm looking at SQL Server types. I'm looking at different types of additions that I've got, number of databases I have, And as I scroll down, I'm gonna get richer information, including my licensing models across my SQL servers. I love this look and feel of this whole type of operation. Look at even further here, this really gets important. This is stuff for you hard to do today in your environment. What editions are you running? How many cores per edition? That matters for licensing. What is your database compat mode? That's big for migration and compatibility. Or I can even see different version numbers of SQL Server. And I can do this at scale across thousands of different SQL servers, running in the cloud or perhaps even running in a hybrid environment. So I love that kind of visualization to say, hey, I want to be able to manage my SQL servers at scale wherever they're actually running. But I also want to show you deeper experiences. I want to see like, that's great for inventory, but can you show me things like performance? So let's go take a look at that a second. Let me scroll up here, and we'll see what that looks like. So I'm going to go over here and show you now my Perf 1 in the cloud. Maybe you'll recognize some of these counters. Things like just memory and CPU are obvious. Those are important to any workload. For SQL, they're critical. But as you scroll down, you're going to see other types of SQL-type performance information, like storage utilization for the transaction log. That is super important, or even for my database separated out. So already I've got a quick picture now across my SQL running on premises, memory consumption, CPU, storage for my logs, storage for my data, four of the most key components to go measure performance for a SQL Server running anywhere you actually do it. Let's scroll down and kind of see some more. I can go down and, what I can do though, even maybe what I can do is say, instead of the last 24 hours, how about the last 30 minutes? So I've got granularity. And in fact, one of the things we're proud of here is this is almost near real time. We're feeding information pretty constantly from your environment into the cloud to see this. So going back here and maybe looking back at that 24-hour view, let's see what else we can look at. So I don't want to see just the storage utilization. I want to see rates. I want to see the actual throughputs going on. That's another critical component to my performance, both for the transaction log and for data. Or maybe even looking at log size. Uncontrollable transaction log size can be a problem for administrators. So I want to measure that over time. But here's what I love. This is my Perf 1 in the cloud. You are a SQL person and you have very detailed counters you want to take a look at. How do you do that? We'll create a chart and look at the depth we can go. Things you can do in a very granular level to measure important performance characteristics of your SQL Server can be done now with this option, and you can create your own visualizations with it and combine them with others. So great new experience for you. It's monitoring for Azure Arc SQL. And remember, this is your SQL Server running where you know and love, but using the power of Azure to get that visualization experience. Okay, so we showed patching, we showed updating, we showed you Arc as capabilities. So let's kind of flip over now and talk a little bit about security. Some in this room have probably used Defender for the cloud, specifically for SQL. We call it Defender for databases. And in this particular functionality, it's a lightweight fee you pay per month, but it can work across all your SQL estate. And the normal mode to use this today is two factors. Vulnerability assessment, where we look at actual common configuration practices that might be security problems for you based on industry standards, or advanced threat protection. Things like SQL injection attack or brute force attacks against your SQL servers. So today, Defender provides those capabilities. What I'd like to show you is something new, something we call the Data Security Dashboard. And I'm going to show this in the form of several different scenarios. So first, notice in the middle here that I'm not looking at just SQL, I'm looking at even Azure Storage. So looking at storage facilities, I'm looking at managed databases and even hosted databases for SQL and VMs. Now, here's one of the keys about this dashboard. It's all based on sensitive resources. In other words, I care most about SQL servers that have sensitive data types. You can see I can get alerts based on what those data types look like. But if you scroll down further, I can see the types of data we're going after. Credit cards, social security numbers, things that may be important for a certain government standard. So we can give you an inventory across where are all the different sensitive types across your fleet, and even tell you what type resources are exposed by the internet. So let's kind of go further a little bit here. Let's go look at something like, hey, I want to drill in to a specific type, like credit card type, and I want to see what type of attacks have happened on servers with credit cards. Look here, I can see brute force attacks, different types of potential vector attacks going against. So I know at a sensitive data type level, I can find out where do I need to kind of focus my time and effort. Because other sources you have may be important to look at, but maybe not as important as ones that have the sensitive resources you need. And includes details of actually what types are in each resource and what is the mitigation against the attack you might make. Now, there's another thing I want to show you that I think is pretty cool. Jeff, you're going to love this one. It's something called an attack path. there are ways that intruders can come into the cloud and attack your data in ways you didn't suspect. The first one has to do with, say, a basic SQL database. Now, I've got a scenario here where somebody has set up an Azure SQL database with a SQL server, and unfortunately, they expose it to the internet and set up the most rudimentary basic authentication for SQL you could get. So right now, I already have a potential problem here with this server that seems kind of basic, but again, I'm looking at the sensitive data types affected by it. But the other scenario is a lot more complicated. Take a look at this. Let me scroll down here. This is a scenario of something we call cloud lateral attack. So what somebody is doing is they have found a virtual machine in the cloud that they can go after and they can attack, and they have found a vulnerability with it. So I'm showing you and drilling here this virtual machine that they've got, and I'll show you insights for it. So what they found is a vulnerability that they can find maybe an exposed RDP port or some way to get into the VM and gain administrator rights to the VM. And you're like, well, that might not matter if they can't connect to SQL from there. Well, there's something called a managed identity. And because they have the rights inside that VM, they found a way to get a hold of that identity token, which is passwordless. But because they have that token, they can get into the SQL server, which is privately locked into the cloud. It's like, what? It's an attack path this way. And they can tell what kind of data types are affected in that SQL server. So the data types weren't affected earlier in the VM, or the identity, but because they made this lateral move, they were able to actually get to the SQL resource in the back end. That is pretty significant and a really good way to go dive into some types of attacks you might not even guess could even happening. Jeff, I don't think you're gonna like this next scenario. So does anybody out there have situations or company where an employee might take a connection string with a SQL authentication and password and store it in clear text and say a notepad file? Or a Python notebook? Well, we can find those with our new service with Defender.
You're causing me pain there, Bob.
I know. So here's an example where we're going in and looking for particular machines and looking for patterns, because we know to go see what these connection strings look like. So let me go scroll down and show you a couple examples here. So I'm going to do a search based on this Cloud Security Explorer, and I found a couple. And unfortunately, the backend resource is a database that has sensitive information. But I have insights to what's going on. So I can kind of scroll further and see, oh, this is that connection string, and I can tell you exactly what file it shows up in what directory on the machine. So I can go to this employee and say, hey, I don't think you should be storing that stuff there. Another example could be, I think I've got an example here where maybe a data scientist is taking that same type of connection string and putting it in clear text inside like a Python notebook, for example. So they thought it was harmless. They built a Python notebook. They think it was a big deal. But inside the notebook is unfortunately a clear text connection string with a password, and that is causing a major problem. So to me, this is just amazing technology to data security dashboard. I mean, think what I just showed you. Things based on sensitive data types, looking at attack paths, looking at exposed resources to the internet, a complete visualization of potentially attacks going to critical data sources that have sensitive data types for enterprise. What do you think?
I love it, Bob.
Pretty good
It's
stuff.
really awesome.
Wait a minute. Why does that say Windows Server v Next right there?
Oh, yeah.
You didn't tell me that.
Time for a little sneak peek.
Oh, what are you gonna do?
Well, first of all, the good news is I'm sure nobody in this room ever keeps passwords in plain text, right? We don't do
Yeah,
any
exactly,
of that, right?
yeah. They won't get hit by that.
That is like brutal. I'm the guy who has to post every week on Twitter to please, don't put your active domain controllers on the internet, because people still do that. It's like mind-blowing. I'm excited to give you a little tiny sneak peek. I have a bigger session on Friday, but we had to talk a sneak peek about what's going on in Windows Server vNext. And when you look at Windows Server going back 30 years, one of the key roles and capabilities of Windows Server has been Active Directory. It is the gold standard. It's what organizations of all shapes and sizes, and it's like over 95% of enterprises use Active Directory. We've got some big investments going on here. On the security side, on the scalability side, let's jump into this. First of all, since I was doing this with Bob, I was like, well, then I got to talk about this database change going on with AD.
JetBlue.
Going back to Windows 2000, that's right, 2000, the database in Windows Server for Active Directory has been 8K pages. We are now moving to 32K pages because we are running into more and more organizations. They're saying we are hitting our head on some scalability limitations. So a new domain controller is installed with 32K pages. If it's in an existing domain, it will use an 8K page mode for compatibility, so it's not gonna break any of your existing domains, it's just gonna plug right in and work. But if you want the goodness, you'll need to move to a full new domain controller in Forest. I'll get to that in a second. But an upgraded domain controller, if you're going from one and you're doing an in-place upgrade, or if you're doing an upgrade, it will continue to use the existing 8K pages. The goal here is we're giving you more scalability. It's just transparent, just an automatic change. And when you make the change to vNext on a Forest basis and a domain basis, you'll get the full 32-page capable databases. So this is one change going on in Active Directory. Another one is around scalability, is around NUMA. So when we launched Active Directory a few decades ago, guess what? Servers had one core with hyperthreading. So lots of cores wasn't a big deal. Well, now we got big servers, 56, 64, even more cores in a single socket. Well, AD is actually starting to hit its head on some of these larger scalable deployments. We're running into large enterprises that are saying, hey, you know what? We seem to be running into some weirdness here. Yeah, guess what? Turns out AD doesn't scale beyond 64 cores. That's fixed. Scalability, we'll take advantage of as much hardware as you want to throw at us. Then, of course, let's switch to security. We did a ton of security work in Windows Server 2022, including TLS 1.3 support. Well, we're bringing this in to Active Directory in Windows Server vNext. So LDAP support for TLS 1.3. I'm very excited about that. It's a huge change. TLS 1.3 is fantastic for security. There's a whole bunch of new defaults, intelligent defaults. If you're communicating with the domain controller and you're changing confidential attributes, it now requires encryption. Used to be an optional component. Nope, you can't make any of those confidential changes without encryption enabled. And LDAP prefers encryption by default. There's a whole bunch of other changes in terms of cryptographic, in terms of Kerberos, in terms of PKInt, lots of changes for Active Directory. Now, in terms of functional levels, there is a new Forest and functional level. So if you want all this goodness, welcome to the Windows Server vNext domain and Forest functional level. Still running on those 2008 domain controllers? I have no pity for you. You're way out of support. Please, I am begging you, get to at least 2016 for your Forest and domain controllers as of yesterday, okay? So you'll be in good shape for vNext. Now, in addition to AD, we've been working across the board. Windows Server, you're gonna see massive enhancements, changes, innovation, AD, file, storage, networking, Hyper-V, compute, some other things that I'll talk to you about on Friday. But one thing I had to show, because again, I'm on the stage with Bob, is we're making some big investments in storage. And storage has had a massive change over the last decade. The move to flash has been the biggest change ever. Finally, we're getting rid of those spindles. We're getting rid of a spinning spindle and a little read-write head that's looking for something to, no, we're flash. Well, it also means we need to make changes in our core storage subsystem. Well, spoiler alert, we've had those in Azure. If you've ever gone to Azure and you go, my gosh, this storage is ridiculous. Yeah, because we've been optimizing the storage stack in Azure, and guess what? We're bringing it down into Windows Server vNext. Let me show you what that looks like. Here's just one change. On the left-hand side, you've got Windows Server 2022. On the right-hand side, you've got Windows Server v.next. We are delivering 70% more IOPS on NVMe storage. That's not a typo. 70% more IOPS. We're going from 1.1 million to 1.86 million on the same configurations. This isn't even the biggest storage improvement.
I'm ready to run SQL on this.
I know, I can't wait. But in addition, there's more. Storage replica, performance enhancements with the enhanced log, storage replica compression, which used to be only in the Azure edition, is coming to all editions. We had people deploying Azure edition with storage replica compression going, this is amazing. It's sending less traffic over the wire. It allows me to be much more efficient. I would love this at the edge too. I need this with like standard and normal Windows Server. You're getting it. Deduplication with REFS. We've had dedupe with NTFS for a very, very long time. But for active workloads or high-intensity mission-critical workloads or virtual desktops, who doesn't want to save 60% on their storage for file servers and 90% of storage for their virtual hard disks, ISOs, and backups? Lots of innovation. If you want to learn more, I have a deep dive session with Eldon on Friday, 11:30 to 12:15, what's new in Windows Server vNext. So I also want to point out end of support. If you follow me on Twitter, at WSV_guy, I've been warning you for 2 years that end of support for 2012 and 2012 R2. Well, we hit it, okay? So that happened October 10th. You can get extended security updates if you need a little bit longer. You can move them up to Azure, or you can run them on Azure Stack and get ESUs at no additional cost. Or if you need to purchase them, we have options as well for that. I also want to point out, July 9th, 2024, SQL Server 2014. So heads up, if you have SQL Server 2014 in your infrastructure, you should already be migrating that, because that's going to come faster than you think. July 9th isn't that far away. So a couple different options for support. Number one, you could just modernize on Azure. And you could take your SQL, you could take your SQL databases running on-prem, you could move it up to Azure SQL, run it in PaaS. You could say, I'm going to take my SQL Server and I'm just going to run it in a VM on Azure. Or maybe I need to keep running it on premises, so I need to purchase some ESUs. We also have a new option, which is to deploy ESUs enabled by Azure Arc. So there's another benefit to Azure Arc. So say, for example, you say, Jeff, I can't move it to Azure to get the free ESUs. I need to run it on premises for a little bit longer. Well, if you Arc enable that SQL Server, that Windows server, guess what? You can purchase the ESUs, and it's just part of your subscription. So you get, and it'll just be part of your regular billing through Azure Arc. All right, with that, again, I'll see you on Friday, and I guess you got a little something you want to show off on the SQL side, Bob.
Well, Jeff, I think this morning there was this Copilot thing that Satya, I mean,
Satya was kind of big on Copilot.
Was it part of this event?
Today.
Hey, man, we're not going to be left out of the game in SQL space, all right? So I'm going to give you a first look of something we're working on in the SQL team, because we know that actually using SQL Server is a great product, but sometimes it is difficult to go solve problems with it. So what I'd like to show you something that's interesting. If you have to go tackle a performance problem for SQL Server, you know that it kind of starts like a vague thing that you got to go look at, then you kind of drill down and figure it out. It could take a while to kind of narrow down exactly what it looks like. For somebody like myself who's been doing this for 30 years, I mean, I've written books on this, I can do it fairly quickly, but even for myself, it can be a weave of a decision tree to make and decide what to do. So let's say I, in this particular case, have a database in Azure, and I want to go ask this Copilot, hey, my database is performing slowly. Jeff, I just want to show you this. This is actual real software. So why is my database performing slowly? I'm going to go ask, and it's like a common thing somebody would ask, the Copilot, right? Let me click it and see what it says. Now for me, I'm trying to use DMVs and diagnostic. Oh my gosh, there's the answer. This thing was able to go and say, you've got a CPU problem that's by 90% for the last hour. Well, I can do that pretty quickly, actually, but look at this. It knows what were the top worst performing queries and actual recommendations to solve the problem. I'm telling you right now, in minutes, this gave me something that could even take myself 30 minutes or even a call to technical support for some customers. So performance is one thing. Let's look at a different one. So let's say that users are claiming they can't connect to the database. Now, it may seem like an easy problem, but in the cloud, like what if they don't know if the service is running exactly correct? How do you get insights of what's going behind the scenes in Azure? And also maybe get information about that some users can or can't connect. So I'm gonna ask Copilot the same thing. Hey, let's go try this. Can users connect to the database? Let me go over and click on it. And another common question is, connection issues. What does it do? So it's gonna go behind the scenes, check the health of the Azure service, but also look for diagnostics that show the service is running, the database is up, but there's something called a firewall rule that's blocking some users. So it's kind of like one of those scenarios that's a little bit more complex to find the answer to that's not that simple. Again, solving and saving a lot of time for this problem. Now, Jeff, I know you like to write SQL queries. No? I mean,
no, it's not my forte.
It's not your forte. Okay, all right. But what would it be a Copilot without helping somebody write a SQL query? So this is a pretty cool experience. We're bringing in a natural language to SQL experience now to query processing. So right here, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tell the Copilot, I'm gonna give it like a question, an English question, right? Or it could be a different language question. I want you to say, tell me recent orders for customers with sales of $100,000. Now, that may seem like an easy query to write, but I wanna show you what it generates. There's no way I could generate that query and write that myself in that quick of a time. This is called a common table expression, and it's a really powerful query, but a little bit sophisticated to generate. So that is so cool. That's gonna really just revolutionize people's ability to write queries in a very quick time frame. Now, some of you, though, actually like to write queries and know a little bit about the query language, but you need some assistance. So we have something called autocomplete. And here's the cool thing about this. The Copilot understands your schema. So it's able to go in as you run a query and help you complete like joins. It knows, it says, oh, those are relationships to those tables. I think you're talking about joining those things. And then it starts adding more joins to the equation because I'm actually doing a fairly large multi-table join. And at the end, I'd like to add some aggregation to it. So I'm kind of going along here saying, well, that's pretty good. Let me hit enter, complete that, and let me type in a group by, and it already knew the column I was going to group by based on the correctness of the select clause in the beginning. I can run that query, and it's successful. This is just the tip of the iceberg for our team. We're going to try to help customers be more efficient with a Copilot. Performance problems, connection issues, index recommendations, query tuning, and writing queries themselves. To me, this could be revolutionary to actually help customers really get the assistance they need to run SQLs in the production.
This is awesome.
I know, I'm excited
Really
about it.
awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So, why don't you end this up, Jeff? Oh gosh, Jeff,
I think
wait.
you've got more.
You know what, Jeff? I always have to throw in a free offer, right? So if you're using Azure SQL Managed Instance out there, we have coming soon a new free offer to run it. So for customers who are looking to run proof of concepts or doing a test migration to the cloud and want to be able to use a free managed instance to go make that happen, that is coming soon. Great new announcement we just made today about our Azure SQL product line.
This is a great offer. Yeah, if you haven't played with Azure SQL Managed Instances, you absolutely should. So just a few more things here. In terms of next steps, please, first of all, again, a huge thank you to all of you. Your input and feedback drives what we deliver in future releases. If you're not a member of the Insider program, please join. We would love to get your feedback on what's coming in Windows Server v0 next, versions of SQL Server, and more. We also, you can discover on-premises workloads if you want help, if you need help migrating it to the cloud. And of course, if you need extended security updates, I'm assuming everybody's off 2012, right? You don't have any 2012 in your organization, right? Right? Oh, good. I'm hoping that a few hands. Okay, we need to get you off those, okay? If you need ESUs, like I said, you can go to Azure, get them free. You can get them on Azure Stack HCI on-prem for free. If you need to purchase them because you need to run them on physical or VMware or something else, okay, those options are available through Azure Arc-enabled ESUs. Also, if you need help with migration, a lot of folks just come up to us and go, Jeff, I need help. Like, how do I rationalize what things I should be moving to the cloud and what things are going to be staying on premises? And how do I figure out how to rationalize that management with Arc? Help me. Well, we have resources to do exactly that. If you need direct access to experts and funding, please take a look at this QR code where you can get more information about Azure migration and modernizing. And then, of course, also for folks that are online, we have subject matter experts that are answering questions as well as all of the session resources. So, Bob, this has been
fun,
a huge pleasure.
Yeah,
I cannot thank you enough for doing this. Hope to see you guys on Friday. And with that, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of Ignite.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.